Denon continues to make their line of home speakers better and better, adding some great features like Apple AirPlay support for Apple's voice assistant, and some basic things like an aux-in jack and Bluetooth support. Not to mention you can connect any USB-C Ethernet adapter to these speakers and get them hardwired, which unlocks some cool features we'll talk about in a minute. So after initially dismissing these as just yet another AirPlay speaker out there on the market, a viewer in one of my live streams asked if I checked out these speakers, and it made me decide to pick up a Denon Home 200 to see what this hype is all about. These speakers are really cool, but are they the right choice for your smart home? Let's get into it. If you're new here, I'm Eric Welander, and this channel is all about Apple and smart home tech, so if you're into either of those things, consider subscribing. So Denon recently released a line of new home speakers, their 200, 400, and 600 series speakers. I picked up the Denon 200, but this video is a little bit about that specific speaker and also just about the system more broadly. In the box, you get the speaker itself as well as the power cable and some manuals, and that's about it. You just plug the speaker in and then use the HEOS app to set it up. So let me show you how that actually works. All right, so I'm here in the Denon HEOS app, and I'm gonna tap on the gear here to go to the settings and then choose My Devices and choose the Denon Home 200 that I have. And you'll see here that I have wired network connection, which is great. I can change the name. Multi-room audio quality is pretty interesting. If you like the idea of uncompressed audio streaming across your speakers in a multi-room setup, then this can be nice. You can choose a higher bitrate. Now, Denon recommends that you only do this if you have really good Wi-Fi or you have your speakers hardwired with Ethernet. Also, you can customize the status light brightness at the bottom, which kind of gives this nice glow to the speaker. And that's nice to be able to dim that in a bedroom or something if you want that off. Another great detail in the settings that I wanted to call out is this speaker placement. Now, unlike something like Sonos that has a true play tuning you can do where you walk around the room with your phone and it calibrates the speaker for the room, or with Apple where it does real-time calibration with the microphones built into the speaker, and some Sonos speakers do that too. Denon, it still wants you to specify the speaker placement, where it says if it's away from walls, near one wall, or near two walls, so like in the corner of a room. And I find these animations make a lot of sense, and it's a nice, easy setting. I just would love to see more detailed calibration control from Denon here. But now, those top buttons on the speaker had me a little confused at first because there's no indentation or thing to make me think that they're physical buttons, but they actually are. So you have to press down until you feel a click. It's not just a capacitive touch surface like a lot of electronics have these days, which I like. It's a nice upgrade to have physical buttons, but it just doesn't show it to me with the design on top of the speaker. And for those physical buttons on top, you have a circle button to trigger your voice assistant of choice, like my Apple voice assistant. And then you play, pause, volume up and down, as well as 3 presets, which resume different presets you specified with the HEOS app. On the back of the speaker, there's also a physical switch to mute the voice assistant. So if you don't want the microphones listening to anything, you can turn that off. There's also a physical Bluetooth button, which is nice for quickly pairing to, let's say, your phone if you want to play back some audio from there. Yes, you could certainly do with AirPlay, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, but sometimes it's also nice just have the Bluetooth option, especially maybe someone else comes over to your home, they want to play some music. It might be easier for them to just do that over Bluetooth. Now, the sound quality on this Home 200 is amazing. I'm very impressed with the sound, and it's also something where their digital to analog converter that's actually making the sound for the speaker, so to speak, that is really good and really good at taking compressed audio streams, like all of the tune-in radio segments that Denon promotes inside of their app, making it sound really good despite it being compressed radio audio. Not to mention, if you're just playing any other kind of regular music, it does just bring out a lot of the details in a nice way. And I think that's really where I noticed the progress of this compared to, let's say, smart speakers from 2 or 3 years ago, like some of the Sonos era series. These just have more detail in tracks, and I think it's partially the way that these speakers are built and EQ'd, but I really like the sound signature. Now, that said, Sonos speakers still sound really good, and I still really like those too. It's a different sound. Now, as far as music services, I mentioned TuneIn, but the real big one here is Spotify. So Spotify has great integration with HEOS, and so if you're an Apple user who also uses Spotify, these could be some great speakers for you, and we'll talk more about that detail in a minute. But you also can tie this to Amazon Music, Pandora, Tidal, a bunch of other music services except for Apple Music. There's no official Apple Music integration, at least at this point. Now, there is kind of a workaround for this with AirPlay. Of course, you can, from any of your Apple devices, select this as an AirPlay destination after you add it into Apple's Home app. But you can also create scenes inside of Apple's Home app if you've signed in with Apple Music on your Apple Home app to then trigger playback to this speaker and any number of other AirPlay 2 speakers you have in your home. So let me show you how that actually works. So I'm here in my studio in Apple Home, and I want to go ahead and create a new scene for my AirPlay 2 speaker, my Denon Home 200. So I go here and add a scene. I'm going to choose custom, and let's just call this focus music, right? So when I want to get down to focusing on writing the script for my next video or whatever, I can then add accessories here. Scroll down to the studio and you'll see my Denon speaker selected here. And then you'll get this media tab right here in the scene edit. And I can go in here and choose whether I want to play audio, pause audio, resume, whatever happened to be playing previously. And then I can also choose the audio. Now, Apple's added some ambient sounds here, which can be nice for just sleep sounds if you want that. But in this case, I'm going to search for Apple's Pure Focus playlist. So this is a nice playlist to just work to. And I can add any individual song by hitting the plus button by those, or I can just hit this top button here and it will add the whole playlist. I can also choose if I wanted to just continuously repeat this and maybe also shuffle the playlist so I don't hear the same songs again and again if I'm playing this a lot. I can also set a custom volume level if that makes sense here, and then go back. I've set up my play audio for my focus music scene. Maybe we can give it a special icon here with a nice color. All right, so focus music is set. I hit the checkbox. And now I can turn that on by just simply triggering the scene here or any other way I might trigger an Apple Home scene, let's say with a smart button, or just asking the voice assistant on the speaker. And so, while this speaker doesn't natively support Apple Music, this is a nice workaround to be able to get some of your favorites from Apple Music to quickly play on this speaker and any other AirPlay 2 speakers you already have. Another Apple aspect of this speaker is Apple's voice assistant, Siri. And working with that on this speaker is very fast and very responsive. And it's nice when then you can also have it hardwired into your network, so then you get faster response times there. Now, one caveat here is just like Ecobee thermostats that also have this sort of extra Siri feature built in, you need to have at least a HomePod mini on your home network that it can talk to do those controls. It does not work with an Apple TV on your network. You have to have either a HomePod or a HomePod mini. Now, some other cool features about this speaker is around the back, there's an aux in port. So if you want to plug in another audio source, maybe like a record player or an iPod or something else, you can connect it to one of your HEOS speakers with the built-in aux port. You don't need to buy an extra dongle like you do with Sonos. And then it can share that audio source across any of your HEOS speakers. Also, if you want to hardwire this speaker for Ethernet, which I've talked about multiple times in this video, all you need is a basic USB-C Ethernet adapter. You don't need to buy some special dongle from Denon. So I just took a Ugreen USB-C to Ethernet adapter that I already had, plugged it into the USB-C port, and it works perfectly. Now, some of the previous generation Denon speakers, like the Denon Home 150, have a built-in Ethernet jack. It's always nice to see those things so you don't need that extra adapter, but at least if they do this, it's so nice that it doesn't require some proprietary dongle. So who is this speaker actually for? Well, I think if you're an Apple user who also really likes to listen to Spotify music, then this speaker could be really nice because you get a lot better options for Spotify playback than you do on, let's say, an Apple HomePod. If you already are into the Sonos system and use Sonos a lot, I find their app, despite all the controversies in the past few years, is still a much better app than HEOS, and just the whole system has decades of software integration that Denon doesn't have, like Pico remotes from Lutron that can control your Sonos speakers. I love mounting those on a wall and then getting physical controls for my Sonos speaker right there on the wall that looks like a light switch. Also, Sonos has a native integration with Apple Music, so you can play that easily through the Sonos app and any other Sonos automations. On the flip side, I think if you're looking at the Denon Home 200, well, I don't think a HomePod, like a full-size HomePod, sounds better. I think the Denon Home 200 sounds better. I would still go with a basic HomePod because it's going to have a lot of built-in Apple Home capabilities, like a built-in Thread border router, which helps your smart home network. It also, of course, supports Apple's voice assistant. And as long as you aren't trying to play lots of Spotify music around your home, it could be a lot better option. That said, Denon also makes the 400 and 600 series of these speakers, not to mention lots of sound bars and subwoofers and receivers with HEOS built in. And I think in that case, they are great options to consider, especially now with more and more of the Apple integration, because while Apple does make two smart home speakers with the HomePod Mini and the full-size HomePod, and they might make more in the future, they're still not going to make all the different sizes of speakers and subwoofers and things that a company like Denon is going to make to fill out the different audio needs in your home. So, well, I wouldn't necessarily go with the Home 200 if you already have a bunch of Apple gear. This kind of integration makes Denon an obvious choice for those other audio needs around your home, and probably better for a lot of Apple users than Sonos. So I'll leave a link to all these Denon speakers at the top of the description. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about with speakers, what you already use, and maybe what you're thinking about for upgrading to maybe these Denon speakers or something else. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Thanks again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.